couple of dedications for today. Today's class, as well as for the entire week, graciously sponsored by Alan Shrem, Le'ilui Nishmat, his rabbi, Rabbi Moshe ben Aharon Simantov, Alav Shalom. Additionally, class for the entire week as well, graciously sponsored by Marcelo Weisman and family, Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved father, Asher Daniela Cohen ben Rivka, Alav Shalom. And today's class also sponsored by Adam Avisar and family, Le'ilui Nishmat, Mr. Robert Wasserman, Reuben Fischel, Ben Yosef, Alav Shalom. Yiratzon that to the words of Torah of today, their neshamot have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. So yesterday we came across and we discussed this in the Saudah Shelishit, something very, very fascinating before we go into the daily dosage of Mishle concerning the relationship between Yosef HaSaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu, and Noah. So we know that Noah, there were two parts to the life of Noah, pre-Mabul, post-Mabul. Pre the Mabul, we know the Pasuk says all the accolades and all the titles of Noah. But unfortunately, after the survival of Noah and his family, regretfully the Pasuk changes and it says, Vayachel Noah isha adama baita karen. Literally means, Vayachel Noah lashon hulin. He became mundane. He was righteous, wholesome in the beginning. Second half, he became an average person. By isha adama, in the beginning, the Torah calls him Ish Sadiq, a holy man, a righteous man. Second part, the Torah calls him Ish Adama, a man of the land, so to speak. And then the Pasuk says, Baita Karem, and he planted a vineyard. And we know the unfortunate end result of that particular day, how he became a drunken and Ham did whatever Ham did. And we know that it changed the life of Noah. So our rabbis tell us, especially Rabbeinu Menachem Azariah Mipano, as well as Rabbeinu Hari, that says that Noah's downfall occurred by drinking. Drinking became the enemy of Noah that day. It says Yosef HaSaddik and Noah had many similarities. Number one, that Yosef, like Noah, the Pasuk says that Yosef HaSaddik matzah hen. Yosef HaSaddik had a charm, had grace. People saw Yosef, if it's Parao, if it's Potiphar, if it's the Beta Osar, if it's the warden of the jail, if it's the baker or the Sara Mashkim, the servant of the king, everyone that came across Yosef, they found charm, they found favor, they found grace. Similar to Noah. It says, and the same way that Noah's downfall was caused by wine, Yosef did not drink wine until after 22 years of being separated from his father, when the Pasuk will say, which I have it here. Thank you so much. When the Pasuk at the end of Sefer Bereshit talks about that the brothers came, and allow me right here to tell you right here what the Yaakov Avinu says, and they sat down. 1 second. Let me just find you the proper language. That they said that they sat down. They sat down and they ate with Yosef HaSaddik. Baishtu, the Pasuk says. And they drank with Yosef. What does it mean that they drank with Yosef? Literally, it means that Yosef, from that moment that he left his family, he did not drink anything. So it says that abstention of Yosef and only sitting with Yosef with his brothers was repairing the sin of Noah that caused his spiritual downfall by drinking. So tikkun, that's one tikkun. Another tikkun is connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. We know the similarity between Moshe and Noah was that both of them were saved from the water. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was put into the Nile River upon reaching 3 months of birth, and Noah building the Teva in order to save himself based on the godly commandment, Lech el Teva, Tzeh min Teva, go into the ark, leave the ark, etc. And both of them were leaders. What difference they had? The Zohar Kadosh discusses if Noah prayed for the people of his generation or not. And if you read that Zohar, it's not clear-cut answer. One opinion, one of the rabbis says he prayed, but not enough. Other opinion says he did not pray because he understood that the situations that they were in, prayer will not do justice. Prayer will not help. I'm not sure if that is an accurate approach, but these opinions are written. Moshe was the leader of Am Israel. So let me ask you a question. What happened when it came to the how do I say this? To the meeting when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, listen, the Jewish people sinned. I'm going to erase the Jewish people and I'm going to restart a new nation from you. You're going to become the founding father of the Jewish people. And what Moshe Rabbeinu says? No. But what word did Moshe Rabbeinu says? Moshe Rabbeinu says, let me write it, Meheni na misifrecha. So our rabbis tell us, if you look at the word Meheni, is me Noah. Meheni, erase me. That's the language that God said when it came to mankind. Emhet ha'adam. I will erase mankind. What Moshe Rabbeinu says, if you're going to erase mankind, erase me. What, are you going to threaten me like you did to Noah? That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You think because you're going to tell me I'm going to erase, I'm going to do it? Go ahead, erase my name. I'm not going to be a partner with you. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why the word Meheni is Me Noah. The waters of Noah. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, don't start up with me. You did it with Noah, and look the disaster that happened. Now you may say, how come Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that way? Maybe I added my Hollywood style of drama, okay, to make it more exciting, but that's what exactly happened, says Rabbeinu Hari and the Rabbeinu Menachem Azariah Mipano. So it says, this is how Moshe Rabbeinu made the tikkun of Noah concerning the prayer for the people of that generation. I said this yesterday in the Saudah Shilishit, and I found it so beautiful and so fascinating that I said, you know what? Let me sit down. Let me share it with the Kahal, so we have a good record about it. So what do we understand? We understand that sometimes we don't understand really what's happening. What's happening right here? I found the pasuk very quickly when the pasuk says, they sat down with Yosef to drink, and it says, Umiyom shemacharuhu, from the day that Yosef was sold as a slave, the brothers of Yosef refused to touch wine. Belo hu shata yain. And he himself, he says, if my father is suffering, and my brothers are suffering as well, how can I drink wine? So it says that abstention of drinking wine remedy the behavior of Noah when he drank wine in yesterday's parasha, which, by the way, from yesterday's parasha, we learn a beautiful mitzvah. What was the beautiful mitzvah? The mitzvah of sisit. The pasuk says that Noah drank, and then Ham came, and he did something inappropriate to his father. There are two opinions in the Gemara what exactly took place, but I'll tell you the simple, respectful answer to the Kahal Kadosh here and virtually. From this incident, Noah was not able to have any more children. Now, so why did action took place? Because Ham says, if God gave Noah a commitment, a commandment, you must procreate, you must populate the world. Ham says, hold on a minute, the world today, it's round. And we're dividing the pie into three, Shem, Ham, Yafet. If I'm going to have more brothers, that means that the pie, instead of being a three, is going to become like a pizza, 16 slices. How many times they ask you, how many slices do you want? I know it's funny, but that's exactly what transpired here. They said, we are three. The world is big enough for three. But if we're going to start suddenly having children, the portion will become smaller, smaller and smaller. He says, I need to put a stop to this. What did he do? He blocked the reproduction power of his father. That's it. Don't think too much. Now comes a beautiful pasuk. Vayikach Shem Bayefet. Vayikach, it's singular. Vayikhu, plural. So the pasuk here quotes two names, Shem and Yefet. So why don't you say, and they took? The pasuk says, and he took Shem and Yefet. If it's Shem, he took, makes sense. But now you have Shem and Yefet, and he took, it doesn't make sense. What they do? Vayelechu ahoranit. Let's make believe that Noah is here on the floor, wherever he was. Now comes the two sons. What they did, they walk backwards, not to see the father in the physical and mental status that he was because of the influence of wine. Kavod, not to disrespect the father by seeing the father not dressed, so to speak. But the pasuk writes, and it says, Vayikach. It says, no, Shem was the one who became aware of the disaster. So what does he do? Shem says, I need to cover, I need to protect the honor of my father. But one person cannot hold and cover it. So what did he do? He summoned Yefet. Says, Yefet, drop everything, emergency, come now. And they walk backwards. That's what the pasuk says. Vayelechu ahoranit. Both of them, they walk backwards. Vayechasu et ervat avihem. And they covered the nakedness of the father. Ufnehem ahoranit. They did not see the body. Be'ervat avihem lo ra'u. And they never saw the nakedness of the father. Comes Rashi and it says, in the merit of Shem, zachu banav letalet. The talet of sisit that we wear every day is in the zechut of Shem, yesterday's parasha. You were protecting the honor of your father. I'm going to protect the Jewish people to the talet. That's why the talet, in Kabbalistic terms, thank you, Freddy, it's called Or Makif, the surrounding light of godliness. That's why the Hatan and Kala, tonight, Be'ezat Hashem, after, in the middle of the chuppah, what they do, they put a talet, because that is a Kadosh Baruch Hu hovering and protecting the sanctity and the relationship between Hatan and Kala. Magnificent Hiddushim from yesterday's parasha. There are three more. I'm going to do it right now very quickly, so this way we can move on to the next topic. Thank you so much. So the Torah mentions the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Yafet. This is not the proper order. Yafet was the older son of Noah. So why was it put this way? For historical reasons. This is Am Israel. this is African American, Africans, and this is basically Europeans. That's each one that comes from Jewish people, Africans, and Europeans. Asian is part of the Sini, yes, of Yefet. Different. Red hair, blondish, Sini eyes, including Patorusu, is in yesterday's parasha. For those that know what I'm referring to, you need to be only from Argentina. You remember him? He's in the parasha of yesterday. Patrusim, Hazako Baruch. At least somebody remembers this. But I saw a beautiful Hidush that says that these three names are a message to each and every one of us how to serve Hashem. So first, Shem. Shem means Leshem Shamayim. You do the mitzvot, you do your prayers, you do your tefillot to connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ham means what? Hot. So mitzvot require itlahabut. Your mitzvot require excitement. You can do a mitzvah like a sleepyhead, or you can do a mitzvah with happiness, with joy, with singing, even with physical movement. The Noam Elimelech writes that sometimes a person is in the middle of the prayer and the person moves, the person starts shaking. It says that is from Shamayim, they shaking the neshama of the person. It's not a penalty, the opposite. It says that means that the person has excitement in the prayers, or let's say the Hazan sings a beautiful song and we sing with the Hazan. There are people that are sleeping. I don't know how can they sleep. Okay, that's a different question. But you sleep, you show your happiness, you show your warmth, you show your hamimut. And Yefet comes from Lashon Yafeh. Yafeh means beauty. We beautify the mitzvot, we enhance the mitzvot, we activate the Hidur mitzvah, as we learned yesterday. There are ways of observing the mitzvah. And I'll tell you one thing. Today, I was looking for a halakha, and I learned two things. But I want to tell you one thing that I learned. We have been discussing, I'm going to use this a minute. We have been discussing in the Bekiim Ba'alacha the halachot of tefillin, correct? So I'm trying to illustrate here. It's not the perfect tefillin, but okay, you ready for this? Nice. How does it look? You like it? Yeah, Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lehol. Okay? But we were learning interesting halachot. This one I didn't say yet, but I'm going to say it to you now. So this is the tefillin. And if you look at the tefillin of Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam, they have something peculiar, that the bite of the head, there is some hair sticking up. So far so good? So we learn that the reason why the hair sticks out, and the hair usually, A, cannot be from a not kosher animal, needs to be from a kosher animal, and even if the animal's shehita was not kasher, as long as it's a permissible animal, you can use the hair. But for practical and Kabbalistic reasons, we use hair from the calf, from the egel. For what purpose? To be metaken, to repair the sin of the golden calf. That's the reason why you have the hair sticking up. But there is a difference. If it's the tefillin of Rashi, or if it's the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. If it's the tefillin of Rashi, it will be towards the right, between chapter 3 of the Shema, of the Tefillin, and chapter 4. What's the connection? So, the first parasha here is Kadeshli. The second one is Vehaya. The third one is Shema, and the fourth one is Be'aya in Shamoa. In between this portion 3 and 4, the tefillin of Rashi has the hair sticking up. Why? Because, and I said this last week, so it should be fresh in people's mind, in the parasha number 4 of the tefillin, you have the prohibition of idolatry. Besartem ba'avatem elokim acherim, and you will deviate and you will serve other gods and you will do idolatry. So if any time in Shamayim there is an accusation against the Jewish people, God says, don't remind me. They already remind themselves every day when they put on the tefillin. So far so good, magnificent. Rabbeinu Tam tefillin has a different lineup of the parashiot. But in order to differentiate between the Rashi tefillin and Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, so then the extra hair sticking up in the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam is in the middle, literally right between bags 2 and 3, and Rashi between bags 3, within compartment, I should say, 3 and 4. But there is a new hiddush today. How many holes the tefillin of the head and the tefillin of the head need to contain? Short answer, 12. Why? The 12 tribes of Israel. What happens if somebody did 10 instead of 12? What happened if they did 14 instead of 12? Halakha is kasher. Why? Because 10 in the world of the tribes is also important. Who are the 10? All the 10 tribes, minor, Levi and Yehuda. Because Levi are Kohanim, that's the elite, and Yehuda is the kingdom. So we have 2 VIP tribes and 10 coach tribes. You like to hear that? You can have extra leg room, by the way, or premium economy. Hazaku Baruch. Now, what happened if you did 14? It says it's not an issue. Why? Because in the world of the tribes, there is a number that we never speak about. The number 14 tribes in Israel. We have the 12 sons of Yaakov, 12, plus Ephraim and Menachem, 14. So the Lacha says, if you did 14 holes, or you did 10 holes, tefillin is kasher. Ideally is 14. In Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, there is another bonus round, that the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam has an extra hole exactly in the middle of the bags on the upper segment of the tefillin where the hair comes out. The hair of Rabbeinu Tam tefillin does not come out from the average square like the Rashi tefillin. The Rabbeinu Tam has an extra hole, and from that hole the Resu'ah comes. And what number does that extra hole does? 13. 13 attributes of mercy. When did the 13 attributes of mercy became activated in Jewish history? With the sin of the Egel. Nice. You approve the message? I wasn't asking. Deep. I learned this today in the morning. I didn't know this before. You think I know a lot? The more you learn, the more you realize how little do we know. People think, I know how to pray. Hazako Baruch. A lot of people know how to pray, how to read. Beautiful. Huh? That's why we don't allow everybody to go to the Teva. Better read good. I'm protecting them. When I say no to somebody, it's not because I want to dictate. God forbid. I'm protecting the person. If I'm not comfortable, somebody asked me today, Rabbi, I want to read. I said, okay, meet me in the office. I have to hear you. He said, why? Because if I'm not comfortable with the reading, I'm not going to put somebody to be Motzieh de Chovah, the Sibur, and the person didn't read properly. It's not only an embarrassment for them, but it also not kavod to the Sibur. He liked the idea. He came to my office. I listened to him. I felt comfortable to say, proceed. But other than that, many times people, can I read? No, I have to hear you. I love the more people we have that can read, it's easier for everybody. We don't have to scramble or ask the same two, three people every time. But it's important to know that a person is going to step up to the plate to read the Sefer Torah or to do Hazanut. You need to have basic knowledge of the proper reading according to the halakha grammar, not according to the Hebrew modern Israeli language, because halachically there are differences in the pronunciation between halachic reading or a standard Hebrew only reading. So I think that we covered, Baruch Hashem, a lot of fascinating insights. Now we're going to welcome back Shlomo HaMelech. He has been waiting for the past 26 minutes. Nice number, 26. Shem Hashem. So I'm sure that it's okay to wait, because at the end of the day, we were all learning Torah. So we left, and I have the marker here. 1 second. Mehila. Let me find the page. Is actually, okay, we cover all these. I don't think there is Mishle on Friday. So we are almost catching up with the daily message. Today's morning class was in Gemara, was not in Mishle. That's why I do not have the marking in place right here. So we discussed last week that how powerful Torah becomes in the life of the person. And allow me to clarify what I said more than once in the past. The book of Mishle, it's basically guidelines for life. We do not discuss halachic topics, but Shlomo HaMelech does a great job in making the person understand how the Torah becomes an integral part of our life, to the point that even when it comes to make decisions in life, the Torah acts like a GPS, giving us not only the Jewish values, but the Jewish ideals as well. And the Pasuk continues to reinforce this topic, and it says, Lema'an telech bederech tovim. The Torah will help us to go in the pathway of the good, or in the ways of the goodness. Be'orchot tzadikim ishmor. And Hashem protects the steps of the righteous. What does it mean? It says, I believe in the name of the Kaf HaHaim, that says that every time we review a halakha, even though you say, I know this halakha, but you review it, by default, we create a malach because of the zechut of learning that particular halakha, and that malach helps us to follow the halakha or to avoid doing against the halakha. That's the meaning of this particular pasuk. HaKadosh Baruch Hu always protect us. Ki esharim ishkenu ares utmimim ivateru bah. It says that whatever we do in this world, we are investing for our own future. And we discussed this in one of the pesukim maybe a week or two ago after the holiday, that whenever we do in a good way, who are going to be the ultimate beneficiary of the good choices that we make in our life? The one and only our own children. But the beautiful part of it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu clones those zechuyot that we have, and they become like a retirement account for after the person meets the Creator, also known as Olam Haba. Utmimim. Temimim means complete. Like yesterday, we call it Noah. Noah ish Sadiq Tamim Haya Bedorotav. He was perfect. What does it mean perfect? The Rabino Elimelech, the Noam Elimelech explains that Noah, as we know well from the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, and just looking at the Perashah, Noah came in the year 1060. Abraham Avinu was born in the year 1948, give or take. So 1,000 years of human history went by. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot calls it, due to the longevity, I believe, of the people. So between Noah and Abraham were 10 generations. So the Noam Elimelech asked a question, why the Torah tells me Noah Tamim Haya Bedorotav? Why don't you say Bedoro? in his generation. So the Rabbi Melech explains that the fact that Noah lived almost 1,000 years, 950, that means that he went through 10 generations. And in history, every generation has their own test. Every generation has their own challenges. Today, for example, or let's go 50 years ago, post the Holocaust, easier to relate. What were the biggest challenge of the Jewish people in America, let's say? Number one, Shomer Shabbat, Kashrut, and family purity. Which if none of the above exists, assimilation is answer number two. Has v'shalom. Today, Baruch Hashem, Kashrut is available everywhere, anywhere. Shomer Shabbat, back then, if a person worked for a factory or for a company, and the person will say, we'll see you on Monday or Sunday, they will tell you, don't come back. God forbid, that's how it was back then, 50, 60, 70 years ago. 70 years later, today, the world and even the non-Jewish world understand that there is such a thing as the Shabbat, and there is even a bill called the Religion Freedom Act that based on religion, if it's Hebrew, Islam, Jewish or Christian, some of this has to do with the beard or wearing the turban of the kippah in official positions, which is permissible based on this thing. So today is very easy, but today, due to technology, let's say, we have different changes. We have addictions. Used to be you need to go to the casino to gamble or go to someone's house. Today you can gamble from your bed in pajamas. True, right? What do you think the schools are dealing with now? Gambling from the cell phone. They entice you. You know, God forbid. God forbid. It's a very delicate conditions that the schools are uniting themselves to find strategies and systems and words of encouragement for the kids not to fall. Between that and social media and assimilation, so we have a lot of challenges. So says the Noam Elimelech that every single challenge that the generation of that, let's call it century, because we have 1,000 years, 10 generations, that each century is a test. So it says Noah was able to survive all of the above. All of the above. He was able to keep his head above water, and that's a reason, according to, I saw it, Mechila, maybe in the Kelia Karo, the Sforno says that the reason why Noah's name is mentioned 3 times in the first pasuk is very simple answer, because there were 3 main capital sins that people were committing in that time, in the century of the Mabul. Remember, the ark took 120 years, so a whole century plus a chunk from the next one. There were 3 capital sins: immorality, idolatry, and murder. But the immorality, regretfully, not only was limited to humans, also involved the animal kingdom. That's why the pasuk says, "Ki ishchit kol basar et darko al haaretz," that flesh became corrupted, and that's the reason why, as we learned the other day, the Teva will only welcome animals that remain faithful to their own kind. If they try, God forbid, to do something out of their circle, by default, the gates of the Teva will not open. It's like the airport. You did not get approved by TSA, go back home. That's how basically it was in the time of the Teva. I used normal, common examples so the Kahal Kadosh can relate to that. Another sin involving the topic of immorality was, regretfully, same-gender relationship. That's what the Zohar Kadosh says. Ki ishchit kol basar, it means also zera levatala. God forbid, Shovavim, the topic that we will discuss, Be'ezat Hashem, once we are past Sefer Bereshit, we go into Sefer Shemot, the time of the Shovavim, we'll have time to discuss it, Be'ezat Hashem, at length. So Noah remained faithful and holy without allowing the outside influences affect his life like it did for his entire generation. So it says, explains here, Utmimim, the complete are those individuals who do mitzvot properly. Mitzvot beli mum. Mitzvot without a blemish. Let's say that somebody wants to offer a korban in the Bet HaMikdash. You know that a korban, before it was accepted for offering, it needed to be to the quality control department. And that quality control was a 4 days inspection. 4 days inspection. Where do we learn that from? From Korban Pesach. We took it on the 10th and we offer it on the 14th. Why? Korban Ta'um Bedika Arba'a Yamim. An offering requires quality control for 4 days. So Shlomo HaMelech says that someone that is Tamim, it says someone who does the mitzvot below mum also is protected. In other words, maybe the person is not a tzaddik like Noah, okay? But at least when it comes to his connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, like we learned the other day in the Spanish class in the Kolel, the requirements that the Rabbi Eliezer Askari, the Sefer Haredim, brings down when it comes to do mitzvot. And he brings 17 requirements which they need to be met in order for a mitzvah to be considered ideal. And I know that some may say, Rabbi, 17 check boxes according to Sefer Haredim? Yes. But you know what is on top of the list? Happiness. Do the mitzvah with joy. Obviously, we devote a few moments, okay, I'm going to put on talet, I'm going to put on tefillin, you say the Leshem Yehud, you say Bihinoam. By right on top, I think maybe number 3 or 4 says, do the mitzvah with happiness. Do the mitzvah complete. Do the mitzvah with excitement. Look forward to the mitzvah and don't look to run away from the mitzvah. Don't treat a mitzvah like you're buying shmates, like you're buying fabric. Okay, what's the price for this? It says, don't negotiate. Mitzvah is not a free market product. Mitzvah is a zechut that we have to do. So I guess that if we add the seasoning called simcha in the mitzvah, by default, our mitzvot will be better, will be more meaningful. And that's what Shlomo HaMelech says. Even adding the extra detail in the performance of mitzvah, that also brings a tremendous amount of protection for the person. Usha'im me'eres ikaretu ubokdim isehu mimena. But those who dafka go against the mitzvah, and they don't care about the mitzvah, and they don't look to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they pay the price. The price here, I'm not talking about what happens after 120 years. That's only between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the person themselves, and we don't understand what happens because we're looking at everything from a human perspective. But I think what Shlomo HaMelech is trying to say is that, like we said in the beginning of the class 2 weeks ago, that part of what we are doing as Yehudim is not only for the benefit of our own life, but for the benefit of Am Israel. But guess what? We are investing for our future. There are people who save money for their retirement, right? You have IRA, you have all kinds of retirement funds, retirement investment. The idea is you reach a certain age, a certain stage in your life, and you cannot work as you may have been able to work when you were younger. So you want to have a certain peace of mind in the golden age of our human life. Hazako Baruch. But you know what it says here? That this investment that we're referring to is the next generation. Meaning to say, if we as parents don't provide a good example to our children in coming to the shul, in learning, in whatever needs to be done. I remember hearing once, many years back in a shiur, a rabbi that was visiting Florida, and he spoke, it was a shiur in education, and it says, don't minimize the value that the child hears that the father says, I'm going to the synagogue to pray. I'm going to the rabbi's class. I'm going to do an act of hesed, obviously, without neglecting your family. Once all that is taken care of, it says that the child listens, that the father comes to the Bet Knesset or comes to pray, goes to a minyan, etc. That does a tremendous amount of good ashpa'ah on the child. You say, how come? I didn't do nothing. Sometimes you don't have to do anything. You just teach with action. Don't they say a picture is worth 1,000 words? It's like you're sleeping on your bed. It's 8:30, 9 o'clock, and you tell your son, "Go to shul. You're lazy, and you're in bed." You think he's going to listen to you? That's what Shlomo HaMelech says. I'm going to stop here because this is the end of chapter 2, and tomorrow we're going to discuss beautiful pesukim, that some of these pesukim are familiar because we sing it occasionally, and also talks about the relationship between parents and children, which is an important chapter in life, because the better the relationship, the better it is for everybody. תזכה למצוות to all of the generous sponsors of today's class. ברוך אדוני לעולם, אמן ואמן. רבי חנניה בן הקשיא אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך, הרבה להם תורה מצוות שנאמר, אדוני חפש למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידיר קדיש בכבוד. אמן. אמן.